Anxiety and stress started towards the end of high school into early college. I had a really busy schedule with classes and working and after-school activities and youth group, and my schedule kind of was taking over my life. And I started noticing a problem when I started physically becoming sick. At first I would just get really bad stress headaches, and then I started getting worried when I was driving and I would have blackout vision, and I would be really worried that something major was wrong. And so that's kind of when I thought maybe this is a bigger problem than just normal stress. So understanding my anxiety and dealing with it has been a process that I've had to walk through for the past couple of years. And for me, my anxiety, there are several different, as you could say, triggers or things that cause my anxiety. And so, for instance, busyness, a schedule that's really full is a huge thing for me. Not getting sleep is a huge thing for me. Having too much caffeine is a huge thing for me. My entire life had to completely change for me to become healthy in this area. And so it took a lot of listening to other people and counseling and different things for me to finally realize what caused my anxiety and how to work with it and fix it. Initially, my parents were probably the first people I went to when it came to my anxiety. I didn't really realize that's what it was. I'm fortunate enough to have a mom who's a professional counselor, and so she probably knew I had anxiety before I did. But she was really great about giving me tools to help me deal with it. And as any teenage kid, I did not really listen to her, because you just can't hear your parents. As you get older, you just, as much as you want to listen to them, you can't. And so that's when someone else suggested counseling, and I completely flipped out because my mom's a counselor. And so I said, I'm not one of those people who need counseling. I have my life together. I'm in leadership. I'm a youth leader. I have a 4.0. I don't need, my life's together. And so it took over a year for me to finally agree to be in counseling, because my life started kind of becoming unraveled. And so that's when I agreed to see a counselor. That was the biggest help for me, because it was a space where no one knew me and no one was trying to fix any problems or make suggestions or give me a book to read or a Bible verse to read and try to say, use this, that will fix it. For me, it was a space for someone just to ask me questions, and it was the first time that I had to look at my life in a very honest and real way that I had never been challenged to do before. And out of those conversations, I learned the deeper issues of why I have anxiety. The first thing I would say is know that you're not alone, especially if you're someone who has been told that you have anxiety by a medical professional. Having an official mental health diagnosis was one of the hardest things I've ever had to hear. Being a perfectionist and growing up in the eye of a lot of people, having people watch you grow up in a large capacity. My dad is a pastor and was a pastor at a very large church my entire life. And so growing up in, you could say, a public eye, having a diagnosis like that seemed impossible for me. And so I couldn't believe it for a long time. And I felt very isolated once I was told that I had dealt with anxiety. And so my initial reaction was just to fix it. I would say know that you're not alone in it. That's the whole reason that I'm doing this video. Someone who has anxiety does not like to be filmed, does not like to be vulnerable in front of lots of people. And so the only reason I'm doing this is because there were people that stepped up and came into my life and said that this is something that they have dealt with and something that they walk through. and people that said, hey, I want to jump into your mess in your life with you and just kind of walk and do life with you. And so I would say look for those kinds of people. Look for people who genuinely care about you. I had to go outside of my family, and parents probably won't like to hear that, but especially as your kids get older, they will not be able to hear you. I'm very close to both of my parents. I'm very close to my siblings, and I needed to get advice and comfort and needed to have conversations outside of that environment. So I would look for people, whether it's your youth pastor or your coach or someone that you can talk to. I'd also recommend seeing a Christian counselor. And as scary and as weird as that feels, it was the most freeing thing for me. And so I always think through counseling and through talking to outside people, and then just listening to other people who have walked through this, I think is a major help too. Parents, I would tell you first of all that if you notice that your kid is really stressed out, or you think that they may be suffering from high levels of anxiety, to not be scared of it, to not think that it's something that you did wrong. I would first just sit down and ask your kid questions. Ask them if they're feeling overwhelmed, asking them if they're having any physical symptoms that may be out of the norm. If you're in a role where you are influencing students, know that you have an incredible responsibility and an incredible opportunity to bring hope into a student's life who may feel very isolated, very alone, and very scared of the feelings that they're having. They probably don't know how to identify as anxiety. They just feel like they are completely out of control. They feel like they're failing in every single area of their life. They feel like they have to be absolutely perfect in every single area of their life. And so to have someone from the outside come in and accept them for who they are and where they're at, and to just be an encouragement to them and be a place where they can ask hard questions and a place where they can be vulnerable and not have to be perfect is such a huge thing. And I would encourage you to just develop relationships with students before you give them advice. And I would encourage you to listen to what they're going through before you try to give them a verse or a book, because most of the time they just need someone to listen to. And then you can help figure out the tools and things that they need. But for the most part, just find a safe place for them to be able to be themselves.